We're here at our next stop, which is marker number 21, the Episcopal Church of the Nativity. And I am standing here in the church with Father Miller, and it's great to meet you, Father Miller. And he's already told us some interesting facts off camera, so we're going to give y'all those facts right now. Can you tell us about when this church was built and how it got started?
The church was built in 1855 and was consecrated in 1859. And it was built, and it's an exact replica of a church that is in Canada, in New Brunswick. And the two are sister churches. The church in New Brunswick is called St. Anne's. And when they built this church here, they wanted to, the priest who built it here was impressed with that church there. So he had this one built, the exact replica of it, right down to the inch. And we use native stone here, which is granite. And at one time, the church was known throughout South Carolina as the jewel of all churches in South Carolina.
Well, I tell you, I have passed by this church a million times, and I never knew that it was a church. I never paid attention, I guess, but we had a hard time finding it today. Tell us a little bit more about the architecture of the church.
Well, it's granite, and it's done on a Gothic scale. It's also done the way most Episcopal churches were built in the early days, and Anglican churches, in that if you look down from the top, you can see a cross, a cruciform. The area right down here in front of us is known as the crossing, where you come across the arm and across. And of course, we have the altar, which is the high point of our worship, and that altar is granite, stone. It would take a Mack truck to move it out, I think. And all the windows in the church it's all stained glass, and they're dedicated to various people within the church. And so the history of the church is around the walls of the church and outside in the graveyard itself. The graveyard is actually a history of Union County. It's out in that graveyard.
Now, how many current members do you have here at this church?
Right now we have about 35 families. And that's down a little bit. We hopefully to get that back up to about 70 families. And they're very dedicated to this church, as you can see. It's not cheap to keep this church going.
Well, I tell you, it's a beautiful church. When we walked in that door, I was just amazed because I've seen stuff like this on TV, but I've never seen it in person. But can you tell us any interesting facts about the church or the property that a lot of people out there may not know?
Well, the church itself, the baptismal font, was designed by Hiram Powers, who was a famous sculptor, and he designed that. The organ in the back is an organ that was built before the church was built, and is stored away somewhere, and then was restored, and in 1990 the church found it and brought it back to the church to replace an organ that had since seen its better days. It's an old pump organ, but it has a little engine in it that keeps the air going so the organist doesn't have to pump it up, and it gives a beautiful sound when it's playing. Outside in the graveyard, and most people in Union County seem to know this, but outside in the graveyard we do have a Yankee soldier buried out there among all the Confederates, although he's buried a little bit slightly different than everybody else, but he's there, and someone occasionally will come and put flowers on his grave, so we're happy that someone is paying him attention.
Well, like I said, it's a beautiful church, and you just told me you have only been here about 6 months. Tell me a little bit about your background and what brought you to Union.
Well, I was ordained a priest in 2005 after 30 years in the business community. I moved out and went to seminary and became an Episcopal priest. And what brought me here, the diocese was looking for a priest who would come and had experience in what is known as yoke churches. In my seminary days, my field study was done in yoke churches. That's two churches coming together. And the sister church is Calvary Church down in Pauline, which was built and designed by the same person who built and designed this church. So the two have a lot in common. And our goal for both of those churches is that at some point in time they will grow so they can break that yoke and go out on their own.
Now, when are services held here?
Services are held here every Sunday at 11:15, and occasionally we'll have some things going on throughout the week. But our main Eucharist service, which is our Holy Communion service, is at 11:15 on Sunday mornings.
And about that organ, you let us see it a while ago, but we want our viewers to see it. So do you mind giving us a quick tour of some of the church?
Sure, I don't mind. We can walk down and show you the organ.
Let's check it out, folks. It's something really neat to see.